Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome to the Game Precast Episode 3. My name is Frank. I am joined
I'm
by...
Mike.
And, well, we are one day away from the next generation starting. So,
Yes,
before we
we are.
dive into that, we're going to talk about what we've been playing recently. Mike, what's been going on with you?
This week I've been watching a lot more TV than games, but I have been playing a little bit. I've been doing a lot of the sandbox content post game and Watch Dogs Legion, and honestly, every bit of that I've played, I've liked more than any part of the story. That game is definitely meant as a sandbox open world experience. Just mess around like GTA, play with the open world and the characters that you can swap between and stuff. So I've been racking up some leftover achievements and just doing the sandbox gameplay of that, and it's fun. Again, it doesn't really make up for my disappointment with the main story and main game, but it's enjoyable. It's kind of just like a hacking GTA clone at this point. And then actually, I played a little bit of Assassin's Creed Unity.
Hmm,
Did some co-op with some friends on that. It's
nice.
extremely buggy. Don't try it. Anyone listening, do not try it. You'll be playing with your friend, and they'll be invisible and teleporting all over the place. There's a lot of syncing up issues, and it's strange to play in 2020. I still love that game. I still think it got way too much hate than it deserved, but the multiplayer definitely could use a patch. So that's about it for me this week. How about yourself?
I finished Watch Dogs Legion,
Nice.
and that's about it. I mean, I started Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon.
Oh, fantastic game.
Dude, I played it for maybe 3 minutes.
Oh
And then I shut
no.
it off. The graphics just felt so weird to me. Like I get it, and you know how like the lines are going across because they want like that retro look.
Yeah.
I just was not feeling that.
But you're literally playing in a VHS tape. Like that's
I don't
why
know.
it's there. I love Blood Dragon, man. A lot of people like Blood Dragon more than 3 itself, and I don't
I've heard that.
particularly
Dude, three
subscribe.
was my favorite Far Cry, and it's like,
2 was my favorite, and 3 was my second favorite. And Blood Dragon, I just count as like another part of 3 because it is Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. It's a standalone expansion. But
yeah. I mean, all the main
I
Far Cry games have had their little expansions. Like 4 had Primal, 5 had New Dawn.
well, 4 actually had its own expansion in game called Valley of the Yetis that was really good. But
Yeah, I never played that.
I would encourage you to do so. But Blood Dragon, you got to get back on that train, man. It has a very cheesy story, but that it's very purposeful. It's very funny, and Rex Power Colt is a great main protagonist, and fighting blood dragons is badass. So
Yeah.
I would definitely get back into it if I were you.
And then I also started Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Not the main game. I've already beat that. I started the new DLC that came out, and supposedly they charged money for it. So I was expecting it to be like really good because I have Uplay Plus from Watch Dogs Legion and then Valhalla. So I was like, all right, just might as well. That's why I tried Blood Dragon, and that's why I'm trying this DLC out.
Right.
I had such high hopes for it because it was paid. Because like the Division 2 had a paid DLC that came out, the Warlords for New York, and I thought that was much better than all the other free DLCs they did. So I was expecting this to be really good, and I go on it, and so far, it's just been like assassinate 9 targets, and then you can go kill the main bad guy.
Well, that is incredibly
I
disappointing to
mean,
hear.
I killed one of the main bad guys, and then I just stopped playing. But there's really no like story to it. I expected it to be like a full blown thing because they're charging money for it.
But it's uninspired, is what I'm getting
Yeah,
from you.
yeah. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe after you do the 9 assassinations, there'll be something and some big story plot will happen. But I
I
don't
don't
know.
think you are wrong because when I played Breakpoint at launch, what an abysmal experience. That game killed Ghost Recon for me. I'm not going to get another Ghost Recon game for as long as I live unless it's a
Oh,
total
you are. We all
reboot.
know you will, Mike. Come on.
No, 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 no. If it's the same as Breakpoint and Wildlands, I'm done with that nonsense. I couldn't. It was such a terrible story. The gunplay and combat and just overall maneuverability was definitely an improvement from Wildlands, but that's it. It was terrible. The story was terrible. The acting was terrible. Just everything was super cliche or annoying, and I wasted my time playing that game. So I don't intend on ever going back to Ghost Recon unless they do a serious reboot and bring it back to what it was meant to be. Now it's arcade. It's not supposed to be. It came out as simulation. It should go back to being simulation. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I enjoyed it, but like the base game for it and Wildlands as well. But I don't know. It's
I
not
beat
great.
Wildlands twice, and that second playthrough was hell. Because I was just so fed up by this stuff. Well, just all the new Ghost Recon stuff by that point. Just playing through it a second time made me hate that game, for sure.
Okay, so on November 7th, I believe, it was Mass Effect's big day.
Yep.
and 7 Day.
7 Day.
And they finally announced the thing that's been rumored for, I think, almost like 2 years now. The Mass Effect, it's called the Legendary Edition. So it's a remastering of 1, 2, and 3, and all the DLC. Now, they didn't really tell much about the actual details to it. They just said, oh, we're reworking a few things. But there's no mention, like, are they changing the ending of Mass Effect 3? Because that's something a lot of people want to know. And there was no mention on that. They just said spring 2021. And, I mean, they said 4K Ultra HD, some new, like, armor and stuff. But, I mean, we're just have to wait to get more details on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I heard all DLC is going to be included.
Yes.
So we'll have the because I never played any of these games. For anyone watching or listening, I
Dude,
have not.
so good.
That's I'm waiting.
I mean, I just played them back in December. I started Mass Effect 1. Then, like, January, I started Mass Effect 2. By February, I was in Mass Effect 3. And then I did Andromeda around, like, April time, maybe. So I played through all 4 of those games. And, dude, they're really good. I mean, I played them on PC, so I was able to put some mods in it to make it not as dated. And, I mean, I don't know. I really enjoyed them. I really don't know how I missed out playing on them, like when I was on 360 back in the day, because I would have loved playing that as a kid.
Yeah, no, they look incredible to me, and I will never disrespect them at all. I did play a bit of Andromeda. When I said I didn't play any of them, I meant the original trilogy.
Yeah, Andromeda is the weakest of all
I got
of them.
about a third through that, and just, yeah, I lost investment because it was only, 2 choices for all major decisions, at least to the part of the game that I played up until. It was just only 2 choices the entire time. I like a bit more diversity with my RPGs, especially in the modern age. I just had no investment with the characters, really. The riders were interesting when their dad was alive because he was an N7, but after he died, which was in the first hour of the game, I kind of lost investment. I chose Scott over Sarah, and I don't really think that I don't think it would have mattered.
No, it doesn't change really anything.
Yeah, I found it to be pretty bland, but from what I've heard about the original trilogy, it's anything but that. Shepard and the whole crew of the Normandy and all that. I'm very excited to play through it, and I was gonna start it earlier this year, but that's around when rumors of this remastered trilogy were coming around, so I decided to wait, and now my patience has been rewarded, so I just have to wait a little bit longer, and I can start it all back to back to back. Just play through them all.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Andromeda more than other people did. Like, a lot of people really hated it. I thought people were a little bit too hard on it. The combat in that game was really good. Just obviously what you said, the narrative and the story lacked. The choice and consequence wasn't really there. But overall, Andromeda was the weakest of the 4 games. The trilogy, I mean, Mass Effect 2, I think everyone agrees that Mass Effect 2 is the best game. Mass Effect 3 improves on everything that you see in Mass Effect 2. Just the final 15 minutes of it is where it goes downhill.
So I've heard.
Yeah, but Mass Effect 2 is probably going to be your favorite when you play through them all.
That's the one I know the least about as well, so that's the one I'm most excited for, because I know no spoilers for Mass Effect 2. I know, like, about one choice in 1, and I know all about the ending in 3, because there was no avoiding Mass Effect 3 ending spoiler talk. But
and I mean, they're lengthy games too. I mean, I'm gonna pull it up real quick on how long to beat. Mass Effect 1 is 17 hours for the main story, 30 hours for all the side content. Mass Effect 2 is a 25-hour main story, about like 40 hours if you do all the side content, and then Mass Effect 3, 25 hours, 35 for the side content. Now, if all 3 of these games are coming out at once, that is a massive amount of content right there.
It's over 100 hours.
Yeah.
Easy. I mean, I'm definitely going to be doing all the side content. That's kind of how I play.
Yeah, that's how I did it too.
So I'm excited for that,
And also, I just gotta let you know that character decisions from like Mass Effect 1 will affect the Mass Effect 3.
Oh, I figured, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even back when I played KOTOR, I mean, certain decisions that you made in the first one did have an impact in the second one. Well, it did and it didn't. It depends if the decision you made was the canon decision, and then it would carry over.
Yeah.
But, to have my actual decisions, no matter what,
you can import your save. Different characters might not show up if you got them killed or whatever. Romance options might not happen if you didn't do something in the first game or the second game. So it is really cool.
I did want to mention one thing about Andromeda. I played that after I played Anthem, and I could see a lot of Anthem in Andromeda. and I can't help but feel like that might have weighted down a bit, you know, just from the boosting with the jetpack and especially the gunplay. The gunplay is eerily like Anthem's.
Yeah,
Like
it's
Anthem,
very similar. I mean,
it's almost the exact same thing. And honestly, that was a fun part of it. Like you said, the gameplay was good, but the story just very lacking in what mattered, which was character.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm excited for it. I'm going to pre-order it as soon as they upload box art for it, so I know that they don't delete the store page and get a new one up. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited. That's one of my most anticipated releases of 2021 for sure.
Yeah, should be a good one. Now, as we mentioned earlier, tomorrow's a big day. Xbox coming out on Thursday. We got the PlayStation. So how you feeling, Mike? You ready?
I am so ready. I am going to Best Buy as soon as I wake up to pick up my copy of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I am going to drive my merry ass home and wait for the delivery driver to come with my Series X. I got the 13 remake, which was a cell shaded FPS back on the original Xbox and PS2. That's coming out tomorrow as well, so that's going to be my second game I play on Series X.
Yeah.
And you know what? I have been an Xbox gamer my entire life for the most part, folks, but I am so much more excited for the PS5, and that only has to that's only because of one thing, and it's Demon Souls.
Yeah.
The one thing I've been waiting for this entire week was mainly for Demon Souls. I'm getting Spider-Man Miles Morales too, but I'm not gonna play that until Demon Souls is platinum, man.
See,
I'm
I'm
not
playing Spider-Man before Demon Souls.
I respect that entirely, but for me personally, I will not touch any other game, especially now Cyberpunk's been delayed. I'm not touching anything until Demon Souls is platinum. I've
Yeah.
been waiting for this game's remaster for the longest time, and now the fact that it's being remade from the ground up, I can't put it off for anything else, man. I love these games more than any other series that has ever been made ever. I can't express how much Soulsborne, you know, helped when I started playing Soulsborne, I was going through a very difficult time in my life, and Dark Souls 3 genuinely helped me with all of that stuff, and you know, just pushing me to my absolute limits and breaking me, and then allowing myself to build back up from that during a time where I was, you know, going through the ringer. It helped a lot, and those games will always have a special place in my heart, precisely because of that difficulty and just the lore building that you have to, you know, really pay attention to find out. You know, the lore is in the bosses, it's in the level design, it's in the item descriptions. It's hidden, but you can find it out if you want to, and I feel like that those games really benefit from that method of storytelling, and I'm just completely ready for the Demon Souls remake, and that is by far my most anticipated game of this year, tied with Cyberpunk. And the fact that I am going to play it this Thursday, I don't like using this word that often, but I do feel blessed about that. I really do.
Yeah. So I mean, for me tomorrow, I have school, so I've got to wait for. I mean, I had the option. I got the email from Best Buy, and I could have set up a time before class to go pick it up.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would have had to wake up like 6 o'clock, and for me personally, I have nothing to play on my Xbox tomorrow. I'm getting Assassin's Creed on PC, and I mean, I'll get my Xbox tomorrow, but it's not like I'm gonna have anything to really play on it. I'll probably just go on Madden to go try it out for a little bit. But my first game I'll be playing on it is new Call of Duty, which comes out on the 13th.
I forgot about Friday's Cold War.
Yep.
Oh my god.
So, I mean, I'm going to try to get as much done on Valhalla as I can.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm going to beat it.
Neither am I.
Actually, let me see if we know how long it is yet, because the embargo
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to be able to beat Valhalla, but I did lie. I am going to have to drop Demon Souls for about 5 to 6 hours on Friday so I can beat the campaign for Cold War and write the review for it and put it up that night or Saturday morning, which you guys can find at thegamepreview.com. Little plug there. But that's the only time I'll be taking a break from Demon Souls, is because I hope, they say it's a direct sequel to Black Ops 1. I want to see Black Ops 1 done justice because it just turned 10 years old today. It's a retro game.
I saw that, Jeff Grubb.
Oh my god, I want to cry. It makes me feel so damn old. I'm not that old.
Well, what I'm reading right now, and I'm not sure if this is true, but it's saying that Valhalla's story is estimated to be 60 to 90 hours. I don't think that's accurate. I think this might just be a random site that didn't actually get it. Let's see.
Yeah, there's no way.
I don't know.
Odyssey
It's
wasn't
PowerPix.com. I don't know. No, he said the story took me 41 hours to beat.
Yeah, PowerPix is good. They have a lot of solid trophies.
Alright, so 41 hours for the Valhalla story. Which is longer than Legion.
No, yeah.
Damn.
Legion's story, I'm
But
kind
the
of
good
happy
thing
with
about
it.
Valhalla, for our time at least, is that there aren't really any side missions in the game.
Well, I heard there is and there isn't.
Yeah,
Like,
they're not actually fully fleshed out. Like they're more of like you might walk by something and you'll get a little like mission starting, but you're not going far. You're not traveling across the map. There isn't really much of a story to it. It might be like a quick puzzle or a quick decision in a conversation with someone, but it's not fleshed out like how they did in Origins or Odyssey,
well,
where it would go take you 30 to 40 minutes to go do a side mission.
what I heard was that there, and I could be wrong about this because I was listening to this video while I was half asleep this morning, but from what I heard was that there are like 3 main stories, but since there's choices in those quests, you can branch off and do other, minor missions within that same main story. And technically, it's not a side mission, but it kind of is. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I did hear. Regardless, I'm fine with that. I'm fine if they're trying something new with it, but if there is no side content, there's going to be a serious problem with the end game. So, because
Yeah.
Odyssey had a great end game. There's still plenty to do after beating the main story,
But then again, I kind of just want to beat the main story and then move on because there's so many games coming out this week.
fair enough.
Like I don't
Fair
like
enough.
starting like 5 single player games at the same time.
No,
Like
yeah,
I
absolutely.
try to start a single player game and then beat it. So I mean, and I don't want to push off Spider-Man or Demon Souls that far.
Hmm.
So I mean, we'll see.
I don't know. I was actually thinking about Assassin's Creed a lot today, just because Valhalla is coming out tomorrow. Because I've played these games my entire life for the most part. Well, not my entire life. I've been a long lot longer than the series has been out. But ever since its inception, I've been playing these games, and this will come nowhere near my favorite, which is Black Flag, but I do have a lot of hope for these games, and I really do want a lot of content out of this. I do want to be able to play it after the main story because I love Assassin's Creed. They haven't really done wrong yet, in my opinion. I know I'm going to catch shit for that, but I really haven't played an Assassin's Creed game that I didn't like, besides Liberation, but I don't really count Liberation because that was a Vita game. But I just I don't know. I really expect a lot from this title. If they mess it up, I'm gonna be, extremely disappointed. And like I said during the last podcast, if they mess up Valhalla, I'll keep my pre-order for Far Cry 6. But if that's bad too, I'm not gonna buy another Ubisoft game ever again. But from what I have seen of Valhalla, I do think it will be an enjoyable experience, and
I
I'm
do
always
too.
looking
I think
forward.
this is gonna be good. I have high hopes for Far Cry 6. Yeah, and I mean for the PS5, I'm really excited to see that controller because that's what everyone keeps talking about is that
The
controller.
haptic feedback,
You know,
yeah.
going into the generation when we started hearing details about it, everyone talked about the SSD like it was gonna be a crazy game-breaking technology. But the difference between the Xbox SSD and the PlayStation one doesn't seem that big. The main difference between the two consoles, besides games, seems like this controller. And I mean, I'm expecting the new Xbox controller to not the new one that's come with the console, the new like Elite one,
Yeah.
and that they're gonna charge probably a little bit more for. That one I would expect to have a similar kind of setup to the PlayStation one, but then how many devs are really going to support it? Because not everyone's going to have that controller. Like everyone's going to have that on the PlayStation controller, so it's going to
Right.
get a lot of support. So I mean, we'll have to see. All right, folks, we are back from that quick little break. We had some technical difficulties, but we are good now. So we're going to be going over our tier list for our top 10 games from the generation. I don't know what Mike put down on his. I don't know what Mike doesn't know what I put on mine. We haven't talked to any of the games yet, but we both have our top 10s, and we're just going to go over them back and forth. Now, I did put a runner-up on mine
I
that
have some
because it was a
honorable
cross-gen
mentions as
game, and I
well.
didn't really want to put it as a generation game because I experienced it for the most part on 360 because that's when it came out. But then I did play a decent amount when it came out on the Xbox One, and I'm about to start a third playthrough pretty soon with mods on PC. So I thought I at least had to mention it, and that game is GTA 5, which
Hmm.
I don't think we need to talk about how
Yeah.
massively one of the best selling games of all time. I mean, good game.
No, yeah, GTA 5 definitely. There's nothing left to be
I
said
don't
about
think I
Grand
need to
Theft Auto
explain
5.
anything about that.
But yeah, no, I have about 3 honorable mentions. Now these are games that I really loved this generation, but I just couldn't find a space for them on this list because I will say my number 10 has 2 games, like I told you earlier,
Yeah.
because I couldn't decide between those two. But these had to be mentioned, but I just couldn't find a place for them on the list, like I said. So The three games are Dying Light, Mafia Remake, and The Evil Within 2. Dying Light, best first-person zombie game ever made.
Now, if I have one of those games on my list, do you want me to talk about it now or just wait till we get to it?
No, just wait till it's
All right,
on your
yeah.
list. Mafia Remake, I love to death, but honestly, I will say this, it very well could be on this list next year, but since it came out so recently, I haven't had enough time to sit on it, um, like like I have with these other games, so it's entirely possible that Mafia Remake could take up any spot on this list, because I gave it a 9 out of 10 objectively for the review. Personally, I would give it a 10 out of 10. I love that game to death. It's fantastic. And The Evil Within 2, God, please make an Evil Within 3, Microsoft, now that you own Bethesda. This game outclassed the first one in every way. It definitely toned down the difficulty a bit, and I mean the obtuse difficulty of the first one, because there was some good difficulty. There was a lot of BS difficulty in Evil Within 1 as well, so they got rid of all of that, made it a lot more similar to Resident Evil, but it still had its own spin on it, and there was still a lot there for the fans of the original game. Regardless, again, I couldn't find a spot for it on this list because there were so many fantastic games that came out this generation, but those three are my honorable mentions. So Frank, if you want to start with your number 10.
All right, I actually have two more honorable mentions then that I'm going to mention since you had two extra. So I didn't have room for these on the list. I thought they were great games. I know that at least one of these is on Mike's list, maybe both of them. But Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 7. I mean, Resident Evil 2 was my first Resident Evil game I ever played, and it was really good. Not the original, the remake was my first Resident Evil. And, I mean, I had a blast. Mr. X scared the shit out of me.
Oh, yeah.
I remember at least typing to Mike so much during that playthrough. I'd be, like, sitting in a safe room. And, I mean...
Where do I go? What do I do?
Yeah, dude. Oh, it's just such... And then Resident Evil 7. I started that game up a while ago. Played maybe 30 minutes, got too scared, shut it off, never played it again. A year later, it was Halloween, I was like, alright, let's do it. I made it. I didn't even progress in the story. I sat in this little upstairs part in the guest, you know, like in the intro of the game when you're in that first tiny house and you go up into like the attic right before you turn the power on. I sat up there, I heard creaks downstairs, and I wasn't sure if there was actually people down there. There wasn't, it was just the game. I sat there and I said, nope, not enough, not doing it. And then a few months ago, I gave it one last shot, and I beat it, and great game.
Proud of you, buddy.
Yes. And I can't wait for Resident Evil 8.
Oh, Village is going to be the best one yet. It's going to be the perfect blend between 4 and 7, I can already tell.
Okay.
But what's your number 10?
So my number 10 game is Firewatch. Now, I don't know if you played Firewatch, did you?
I have not.
Okay, so Firewatch is it's a walking simulator, but it's interactive, and you're I guess Firewatcher, right? And you're in the middle of the woods, and you can communicate with only one other person over like a walkie-talkie, and you're just walking around the woods and you're doing stuff. And there's a 3-hour long game. I beat it in one sitting. It's got a decent story to it, and it's a good game. It's fun. It's nothing special. It's nothing crazy, but for some reason, whenever I think about walking simulators, and I play a decent amount of walking simulators, it's always the one that I think of. It's my favorite one. I mean, I reviewed Suicide of Rachel Foster, and I only played that game because of how the graphics looked like Firewatch. I don't know why Firewatch, I like it so much, but I do. I mean, there's a lot of games that probably had a much, much, much bigger budget than Firewatch did that probably should have been on this game list before Firewatch, but I went with Firewatch as my number 10.
I respect that for sure. I've never played it personally, like I said, because walking simulators aren't necessarily my cup of tea, but I have heard phenomenal things about Firewatch, and I heard that it's the cream of the crop in terms of that genre. My number 10, I'll go over them one by one. First off, I want to say Dishonored 2. Now, Dishonored 2 is not as good as the first game in terms of story, but it is better in gameplay. And since the first game did come out first on the last generation, I would have put the first game instead of this one. And it would have been higher on the list if it was the first game. Because Dishonored 2's story definitely is lacking. I personally loved it because I played all the DLC of 1, so I knew exactly what was going on in the sequel. But if you didn't play any of the DLC, you would be confused for quite a while. And on top of that, the story and the villains in particular were not as compelling. Like Duke Luca Bell is no Admiral Havelock, and think that that part was lacking, but the gameplay was phenomenal. The replayability between Corvo and Emily, you know, you can play them in entirely different ways because they had different powers. Um, I love these games because my first time I go through them, I do it stealthily. I never get spotted. I never kill anyone, and I go through like a ghost. And then my second playthrough, I'm a psychopath and I just slaughter everyone. And there's just so much, you know, the mechanics of these games are phenomenal. There's so much versatility in what you can do and how you can assassinate people. Or the versatility of how you want non-lethally dispose of somebody. Just Dishonored is the best first-person stealth series that I have ever played personally. And then tied with that, which is completely different in terms of genre and gameplay, is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. And the reason that game is on here, not because it has a good story, because it doesn't. The story is incredibly cliche, and the characters could have been done well better. Particularly like Seer, I found her to be incredibly annoying.
Yeah.
And I found a lot of plot holes within her thought process. And I am a huge Star Wars fan and a huge Star Wars nerd, so I can tell you she does not embody the Jedi code or what it means to be a Jedi. She is not a good character in my opinion, and just other than that, the story was just, you know, it was cliche. I like some characters, like bringing the Night Sisters back, the last Night Sister, that was awesome on Dathomir. Some boss fights were incredible, like Terran Malicos, the Dark Jedi, that was my favorite. And the fact that it was a Souls-like above all else. Gameplay wise, it's my favorite Star Wars game because I am a Souls masochist, and I just, to be able to play a Star Wars Souls light was incredible. And to finally have a good single player Star Wars game when we haven't had one since The Force Unleashed, it was fantastic. And for those reasons, it's on my list at number 10, tied with Dishonored.
Yeah, I mean, Fallen Order was my favorite Star Wars game I've ever played. I haven't played a KOTOR or anything like that. I've missed out on that, and I want to replay those games. I want to play them for the first time, but I keep hearing that, oh, there's a remaster coming, so I'm holding out with hope.
You will never see me again when it comes out.
Yeah, I mean, it almost made my list. It's probably right after my runner-up, because I had 3 runner-up games. So, top 15, I'd put Fallen Order probably, I think, the 14th spot for the generation, and maybe like Life is Strange at like 15. But we're not going to dive into that. But, dude, I don't know. Fallen Order was just, like you said, the Soulsborne combat. I don't think anyone expected them doing that with the Star Wars game. And it was so good. It worked. Yeah, Respawn's first-person shooters and stuff. Like, dude,
it's phenomenal.
Great.
And I think the sequel is going to be better than it in every single way.
I agree. I mean, I fully expected him to die. Ooh, should I? Spoiler warning? I mean, it's been a while since
spoiler warning. I mean, Cal is going to die. Let's be honest here. He's either going to fall.
Yeah, I mean, that was my whole mindset going into the game. Is these guys have to die because you don't see them in the original trilogy. It has to make sense.
That's not true. Yeah, Cal doesn't have to show up in the original trilogy for him to still be alive. However, I do think it would make way more sense for him to become part of the Inquisition and become an Inquisitor. I think it would be way better for his character. I think we've already seen details of that happening in the first one. Yeah. And I think it would open the way to a new protagonist. Who that would be, I don't know. But let's think about other Jedi that were still around after this Fallen Order.
That's true. I mean, Rebels is coming out, and the sequel show.
Yeah, it could be Ezra, it could be Kanan Jarrus, it could be Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, it could be anyone that's still around, or they can make a new character, or they could bring some Legends characters and make him canon. Cough, cough, Galen Merrick.
Yeah. Now, dude, I fully expected him to die at the end of the game when you're in the Vader chase. 100%.
He got stabbed. I thought he did too.
No, I was like, all right, he's gonna die here. They just killed off all the other characters. He's dying here, and you're in that chase, and then Vader, you think you escaped him, and he pops up, and I was like, that's how he's dying. I was so shocked that he survived the end of the game.
I was too.
And what you said is a definite possibility, and I think I actually like that more now than him just dying in the second game at the end. And then what you mentioned about Dishonored, I played the first Dishonored and all the DLC for that game, and I really enjoyed it. And then I started up Dishonored 2, and for some reason, I'm having tech issues with it. I had to stop playing it now. It's not really
incredibly buggy on PC.
Yeah, it's not even like a tech issue. Like, it runs good, but for some reason on my 1440p 144 Hz monitor, and other people have the same issue with 144 Hz, it doesn't feel smooth. Like, you're getting 90 FPS, and it doesn't feel like 90 FPS.
That's true.
So it's something to do with the 144 Hz, and I think like AMD cards or something. So I'm gonna give it another attempt when I hopefully get my 3080, because then I can play it at 4K 60 on my other monitor. And
Yeah.
but that's assuming I get the 3080 and it's not fucking lost in California. Um, so my number 9 game is one that's already been mentioned, Dying Light. Um, I really like Dying Light. I didn't beat it the first time I played it. I started it, played like maybe halfway through the game, and then I stopped because I remember rage quitting because I was doing something at night, and you like, ran back, and then you had to go as soon as you got to like, the hotel place.
Yeah, the tower.
Yeah, you got to the tower, and it was like, no, you got to go to the other side of the map, and it was that dark, and I was like, nope, not doing that. I'm done. I'm so done with this game. And then I went back to it, and I restarted it, played through the entire game, did majority of the side content, did the DLC, and I really liked it. And it made Dying Light 2 like my top 3 for anticipated games of the year. So I'm looking forward to Dying Light 2 when it comes out in 2021, hopefully.
Well, yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, but that is that.
All right, my number 9 is Mortal Kombat 11. And I'm a huge fighting game fan, though I think my fighting game days are behind me because I did start to develop a little bit of carpal tunnel. But I 100% in Mortal Kombat 11 under a month of that game coming out, and I mean achievements, script, everything. I totally completed it, and I can absolutely say that is the best fighting game ever made. Mechanically, every character is so different and so fluid. You can learn their combos, and it's just like water, like Bruce Lee said, be water. It's so smooth. I've never played a fighting game with this much finesse in every single character consistently. The stages are beautiful. It almost looks photorealistic. The fatalities are the most gruesome they've ever been. The story was the best Mortal Kombat story I've ever played. The ending was an Avengers Endgame level like battle with all the characters that were pretty much ever in Mortal Kombat, or at least the ones that are still around, in this massive fight to stop Kronika. And spoilers right now, Liu Kang becoming the new protector of Earthrealm, like fire god Liu Kang. Incredible. And now that he's finally back and alive, the homie Liu Kang is alive. It was a perfect fighting game, and I will have to say I have not beaten Aftermath. I started it and I really liked what I played of it, but I haven't beaten it yet. I do want to do that, but from the base game itself and just the amount of cosmetics that you could customize your character with, I don't like the microtransaction element of it. I really detest that. But to be honest, you can earn. I never bought any of the microtransactions. I earned everything in game. So for all those reasons, I do believe it to be the best fighting game ever made. And anytime anyone wants to square up on the controllers, it's Mortal Kombat 11 from now on.
You see, I've never played a fighting game before.
Really?
Never. It was just never into those kind of games. I don't know.
Well, if you are to ever try one out, make Mortal Kombat 11 your first, because it's on top of all that, it's extremely accessible for new players. There's a lot of tutorials, a lot of in-depth tutorials for every single individual character as well. It's easy to get into, difficult to master.
Okay. So my number 8 game is Kingdom Come Deliverance. I don't know if you played Kingdom Come.
I have, and
it's probably not high on your list, is it?
No.
Now this game, I don't know. I played it when it came out, and I just fell in love with it. I think I have close to like 90 hours on it. I played the main story, every ounce of side content in that game, did all 4 DLCs, bought them all at launch for full price. So I paid at least like $100 on this game. And dude, I don't know why I liked it so much, because I know it didn't review that great, but the combat in that game was just so fun to me. Like how you gotta just go up in different directions during sword fights, even though it was hard and I got my ass kicked a lot. There were a decent amount of bugs in it, but I mean, I expected bugs from it because it was a small team working on it. I mean, it was essentially, I don't want to call it an indie game, but it was crowdfunded. I mean,
like AA.
Yeah, I mean, it was AA game. It was crowdfunded. I mean, this game was in development for a while. I know a lot of people were excited for it, and then I saw it, and I was like, oh, wow, this actually looks kind of good. The story, I actually like the story. I mean, I don't know. It was a good game for me.
I understand your choice completely. I mean, I know a lot of people who like that game, but for me personally, I found the combat to be obtuse.
And yeah, I can see that.
I found the sword. I thought it was inconsistent because there were a lot of times where I should hit someone and it doesn't register, or they hit me and it does an exorbitant amount of damage. Especially there are no big siege battles like were advertised in the trailer, but
Yeah.
the biggest battles that you have in the game. I remember in the beginning you were laying siege to this one church. Um, that some enemies, I believe some bandits were holed up in, and it took me forever to get past that part because I just never found any armor or any weapon that could compete with these soldiers. So I had to loot these corpses mid-battle to get better gear to survive the battle. But by the time I would do that, all my soldiers would die and I would lose. So there was
Yeah.
nothing I could do, and I just stopped playing the game because of that. I'm sure if I went back to it, started a completely new playthrough today, and I really devoted my time and my mind to it, I could figure it out and I could enjoy it. But there's too
Yeah, you
many
see,
other
I
things
did
I've
some
got to play.
cheating on it. I was on
You cheated?
PC, so I got some mods.
Well, that's what
I
I
got
was
one
gonna
that made
say.
it
I
lock
did
picking
play it.
easier. I got one that had unlimited saves because the save system in that game was fucking
Yeah,
busted
no,
at
I got a
launch.
trainer that did that.
Yeah,
You
I
had to
mean
like
there was
get an
some
item to
issues with
save.
it, so
I
I see why
respect
some
that.
people didn't like it, and I mean I just thought there's a lot of cool different missions to it, like just stuff I didn't expect. The medieval time was awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
I love the setting. It was incredibly realistic in that regard. I
I
will
mean the
give it.
story, the ending kind of pissed me off because there's like two goals of this game: to get your sword back, your father's sword back, and to get
Yeah,
revenge for your family's death. And neither of those get really accomplished. You end the game and you're going after these people, and it kind of just ends. And I expected the DLC to kind of like finish the story, and I was like, now we're saving this for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which should be coming out pretty soon, honestly, or get announced pretty soon. But
well, I don't know. I remember this game taking a long time to come out, and it only came out in 2018, I
yeah,
believe. But it was cool because we've never really seen another, game take place in Bohemia.
yeah,
I mean, there are like strategy games that definitely have Bohemia in them. Don't get me wrong, but to have an open world game that's in Bohemia in the 1400s, that's great. And to fight the Cumans is awesome,
yeah.
especially as a history. I love cutting up and cutting off the heads of Cumans. I don't want to sound, a bit overzealous, but that part was very fun. Um, Regardless, if they do make a sequel, there's a lot they have to improve on, and more than anything, polish. It needs a
Yeah,
lot of
I mean, I agree.
but I'm not saying it's a bad game. I personally just did not um, like it as much as a lot of people did, but I know there are a lot of people that share that opinion with me. My number 8 personally is Uncharted 4: A Thief's End.
That's I'm just gonna say now that was my number 7, so we'll combine our thoughts into this.
Okay, well, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End for me is the best adventure game I've ever played.
Yeah,
My favorite adventure movie is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and I truly believe A Thief's End matches that in terms of quality. Um, my opinion, last good game Naughty Dog ever will make. Um, but if that is the case, I'm fine with it. The story is written superbly. It's impeccable. The
oh, you
fact
see,
that they
I'm
were
gonna cut you off real quick. Naughty Dog, they did the DLC. Well, not the DLC, but the standalone thing. I forgot the fucking name. Lost Legacy.
I haven't played that yet.
Oh, you haven't played it?
No.
Did that Lost Legacy might be their last like good game.
Okay, well that's a standalone expansion if we're gonna be honest.
Yeah, I know.
In
I
terms
mean,
of
it was
full
built as
AAA
DLC, and
release,
then they made it too big, and they're like, all right, separate game. All right,
in
back to
terms of
Uncharted 4.
all right, in terms of a full AAA release, I believe it's the last good thing they'll ever make. Judging off The Last of Us 2 and its completely mediocre story and just abysmal writing that makes zero sense. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about good games, and that's what Uncharted 4 is. The fact that they were able to write in that Nathan had a brother in the fourth installment after never discussing it before, and to have it work as well as it did was incredibly surprising. You
Yeah.
really felt like Sam was there the entire time, and that's just because in due in part to how brilliant Troy Baker's performance was as Sam Drake, and Nolan North pulled out all the stops as Nathan, and the person who, I don't know their names
I
from
mean,
the
they're two of
beginning.
my favorite voice actors now, and that's how I
Yeah,
discovered them. I played games that they were in, but I never really knew about their voice actors. I mean,
and I don't.
Nolan North and Troy Baker were the first two voice actors that I actually started to follow on like social media and stuff like that.
Oh, they're fantastic, and they deserve an Oscar for pretty much every performance they bring out. And I will say the only good part about Last of Us 2 is Troy Baker's performance as Joel. Because even though they gave him stupid ass lines, he performed them to the best of his ability. Um, Regardless, I th- whoever played Sully and Elena, I don't know their names, forgive me, but they were incredible too. And just the overall story, you know, finding the lost a lost city of pirates, some of the greatest, well, greatest depending on your definition of greatest,
Yeah.
some of the greatest pirates to ever live, Thomas too, Henry Avery. um just to have that, all these guys got to, and Bonnie, they all got together and built this lost pirate civilization. And I love pirate history. We were just talking about Assassin's Creed Black Flag before we started the show. They had a lot of those guys in there. And well, not a lot. Well, the only one that I think is between the two games is Anne Bonny. I think that's the one common character. Regardless, the fact that they have all this pirate history in this game, and it is an international adventure. One minute you're in a ballroom acting like you're there for an auction, you steal a historical object, you break out, and the next you're in Scotland searching for an abandoned tomb, and then you're in Kings Bay in Madagascar driving a jeep through a city street trying to avoid an armored truck. This game goes everywhere, and the set pieces are beautiful. The
Yeah.
story makes sense at every turn. It's suspenseful. It keeps you guessing, especially when or rather when Sam gets shot and pushes Nate off of the back of that cliff. I really thought something bad happened. It really kept me guessing the entire way. To see Nate as a kid, with Sam, we got about 3 to 4 chapters as him as a kid. To have more backstory on him and his mom and his dad in particular was really great for growing Nate's character. Even at the end, even that's another thing I was so impressed. Even though this is the final installment, we still got so much character development and growth
Yeah.
for Nate Drake. And the fact that he lived and had a kid and had a happy ending, it was fantastic. I couldn't ask for a better ending to one of my favorite franchises, because the first PlayStation game first PlayStation 3 game I ever played was Uncharted: Drake's Fortune, and I just felt like being a longtime fan paid off in every single way, and I do believe Uncharted 4 to be the best adventure game ever made. All right, so we had a few more technical difficulties. We apologize for that, but we are back, and we just finished up the Uncharted 4 discussion, which we have pretty much come to an agreement on. That's the best adventure game ever made, and that's why it is my number 8 and his number 7. So my number 7 is also a Sony exclusive, and that is God of War 4. God of War 4, I mean, again, it's almost had as much discussion on it as stuff like GTA 5. What can you say? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, God of War is. I mean, did you play the original God of Wars?
I did.
Okay.
And that's why another reason why I love it so much, because it was able to take a series that was around for such a long time and completely change the gameplay, turn it on its head, innovate it, and still have it be a massive success, and in my opinion, the best of the series.
Yeah.
It definitely took inspiration from Souls. There's no denying that, and that's not a bad thing at all, as we've established. The combat's definitely meatier and grittier than Souls. It has a lot more feeling and feedback, particularly with the controller. But the combat's phenomenal. But that's not even why I love it. Of course I love the combat. Of course I love being able to throw the Leviathan axe and pull it back into my hand like Thor.
Yeah.
Of course I love getting the Blades of Chaos back and this new camera and this Souls comp, just like whipping it all over the place like I'm an absolute God of War. Pun intended, but it was a bad one. I apologize. Regardless, the story was the best it's ever been. And after all of this time to completely branch off into a new mythology, to leave all the Greek stuff behind. Besides, Athena shows up for a very little amount, and so does Zeus, but it's very inconsequential to the overall plot. To see guys like Balder and Freya and the Thor at the end, Magni, Modi, these are deep cuts in Norse mythology, but they were executed flawlessly. The acting was phenomenal. I forget, was it Christopher Judge? Is that the name of the guy who played Kratos?
I have no idea.
I don't know. That could be his name. Regardless, whoever they got to play Kratos now channeled the original actor so well, but still made him seem more mature.
Douglas Christopher Judge.
Yeah, Christopher Judge. All right, so he was just phenomenal. He was able to still capture the character of Kratos, but made him sound more weathered, more mature, like he really did feel the effects of the original trilogy. Um, to show that bond between father and son, you know, him with Atreus, and that there was a lot of growth not only in just that relationship, but with Atreus himself. And by the end of the game, you have a new character who I personally love. I think Atreus was a great addition, or should I say Loki. Um, you know, he's fantastic. He goes through his, you know, he matures quite a bit throughout the game to set up, you know, what's going to be an exciting sequel supposedly next year.
Which isn't happening next year. There's no way. 2022.
I don't believe that either. I believe 2020.
Because they just confirmed that Horizon Zero Dawn is the second half of 2021, and I always expected that to be the first half. Like, they confirmed, I want to say, Ratchet and Clank is first half. Gran Turismo is first half of 2021. And what was the other?
They probably announced it so for 2021 so they could get more pre-orders for PS5 early on. And I don't blame
Returnal was the other game for early 2021.
It's a solid, you know, marketing strategy, but I don't think it's going to come out in 2021. I think that was just a bit of PR. Regardless, not only was that game's story impeccable and the gameplay was impeccable, but there was so much side content you could do as well. There was just a lot of stuff to do.
When you're just going around on the boat and stuff.
Yeah, and I haven't even done that yet. I haven't done a lot of the side content. I did all the Valkyries.
I didn't do the Valkyries.
I did most, and Sigrun's the hardest boss I've ever fought in a game to this date. The Queen of the Valkyries. Only boss to ever make me nearly break a controller. I didn't, but it was damn close. And on top of that, you know, all the side missions, the Trials of Muspelheim, which I got about halfway through. Niflheim has a lot of replayability as well. There's just so much content, and it's all good content. And again, it's a $60 flat fee, no DLC, no microtransactions, you just get everything. It's a solid package. And my main reason for it being here, and I've said it before, but I want to reiterate it, to be able to have a series go on for this long, but to completely reinvent it and to innovate it and to have it be better than it ever was after all this time is incredible. And I think it deserves a lot of credit for that. So that's why God of War 4 is my number 7.
Okay, and we are back. More technical difficulties again, and by technical difficulties, I mean dogs. It seems like a common theme on this show. Last week it was my dogs. This week it's Mike dogs. Next week, I don't know. Maybe I'll get like a parrot or something. So my number 6 is The Last of Us Part 2. I'm just kidding. Alright, my number 6 is Fallout 4. I know Fallout 4 is one of the worst. Not the worst Fallout. 76 took that. But I needed to include Fallout because Fallout is my favorite franchise of all time. And, I mean, Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas were absolutely superior over Fallout 4. Fallout 4 got some hate over the lack of choice and consequence in that game, even though there still was a decent amount. It just wasn't as much as Fallout 3 and New Vegas. I mean, there's still some with choosing different endings and stuff, but it was really just the endings that I had to play on, and then it was like 2 hours with a different gameplay with like, the Institute and all that. So, I mean, it definitely did lack in that department, but it was what introduced me to Fallout. I mean, I saw that game get revealed. I saw so many people get hyped for it. My friend, who was telling me how good Fallout was for so long, finally convinced me to play Fallout 3. Right before that, I played Fallout 3's main story. I loved it. Then played New Vegas' main story. Loved it. Played Fallout 4. Pretty much 100% of that game. Did everything in that game. And then went back and played Fallout 3 and played all the side content in that game. Played all the side content in DLC in New Vegas. And I saw the difference. And I saw why some people complained about the quality. I mean, after I was done with Fallout 4, and that was before actually getting to see all the choice and consequence in the previous games, I was confused at how it wasn't winning Game of the Year. Because there was this game called The Witcher 3, which I never even heard of. And I was like, how's this game getting Game of the Year? And I was like, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Because I did finally experience that game. But at that time, I was so confused. And, I mean, that game did end on a bit of a sour note with the DLC. The DLC for that game wasn't that good at all. I mean, Far Harbor was amazing. But besides Far Harbor, it was a mess with the DLC. I mean, they had like the one robot one where it was like an hour long for new content, and then they had a lot of stuff for like the building mechanic, which I know a lot of people didn't like, but I did like the building mechanic. I just wish that they had more of like more settlements. I mean, in that game there was really a lack of settlements. They had the Diamond City one, and then the Good Neighbor, I think is what it was called, and then you had like the Brotherhood, a few Brotherhood locations, and that was really it. I mean, I felt like because they made such an emphasis on you building your own settlements, it really hurt the game because then you're spreading out your building. There really should have just been maybe like 3 locations where you could build that, and then those places actually be real settlements that were already established. And I think that would have gotten rid of some of the complaints we saw in this game. And then there was the Nuka World DLC, which I didn't even end up finishing. I got stuck at one part, and yeah.
I did not like Nuka World because I finished it my own way, because one of the slaves at the settlement says, hey, if you kill all the game members, we'll be free, and that's that. The game encourages you to like enslave the Commonwealth though, and like expand your bandit empire, which I did not want to do because I already had plenty of supply lines set up that I did not want to have ruined.
Yeah.
And I killed all of them, and then they're just like, oh, thank you. And then the DLC just kind of ends.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
mean, the
what?
problem with it is, like, people want it, the choice and consequence. They want the option to be good or bad. But they want the option to be good or bad. They didn't want it to be forced on them to go be, like a bad guy.
Yeah.
And that's the whole DLC was, to go be a raider, I mean, at Nuka World. And, I don't know.
Like, I liked Far Harbor. I thought it was okay. The main story was alright. I think New Vegas is still better, but I will
Oh,
say
yeah, absolutely. I needed to include Fallout on this list just because favorite franchise of all time.
I like 4 more than 3. I will say that. But
Okay.
I also will say I'm biased against 3. I don't like it. So
Whoa, why not?
I find the gunplay to be terrible.
Yeah, but
I don't like the combat that much at all. Everything has a green hue.
I mean, that's the one thing Fallout 4 did. It improved the combat a lot.
Yeah, everything has a green hue to it. Everything is just kind of bland to look at.
Depressing.
That's why I love the Mojave so much.
And the ending of Fallout 3 was such a weird thing, and how you had to pay for DLC to continue playing.
And that's absurd and ridiculous. And I understand a lot of people love it, and I won't fight anyone or debate anyone on that. If you love the game, that's great for you. Personally, I don't like Fallout 3. So when I played Fallout 4, I thought it was a breath of fresh air. There are definitely flaws with it. It is nowhere near a perfect game, but I like it a lot, so I can definitely understand why it's on your list.
Okay.
But so that was your number 6.
Yep.
Mine is Hideo Kojima's magnum opus, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain.
Now, no spoilers, please, because I haven't played it. It's on my list. It's on a very, very, very high part of the list. It's coming soon because I played Death Stranding, and I know he's very talented, and I want to experience. But go ahead. Why is it your top 5?
Well, it is an incredible game. I know I've been saying that for all these, but it truly is. The stealth gameplay, it is by far, gameplay wise, because story wise, they didn't get to finish it. You know, Konami pulled the rug out from under them, and we didn't even get a complete game. And because of that, we had to replay a lot of missions halfway through in the second act. And yes, they had modifiers, like you couldn't be spotted, or they were a lot harder. But it just kind of felt extremely unnecessary, and that's due in part to it not being the true ending for the game. I have the collector's edition. I've seen the true ending that they put on the Blu-ray disc, and it was incredible, and it sets up the first Metal Gear Solid very well. But they didn't let him finish it, and for that, the story will always be tainted. Not to say that's a bad story. There are some weird things about it, but I personally love the story of Metal Gear Solid 5. I loved Kiefer Sutherland as Venom Steak. I loved Troy Baker as Revolver Ocelot. I don't know who played Kazuhira Miller. I think it might have been Roger Craig Smith. I could be mistaken, but whoever did it did a phenomenal job. And it was just all around. I really, really love the story of Metal Gear Solid 5. I can't get into it because, as Frank has said, he hasn't played it. I'm not going to spoil it. But I do view it to be a very great addition to the Metal Gear Solid story. And gameplay-wise, you know, I don't think it... Like I said, it's the story of Snake Eater. I can't talk. The story of Snake Eater is better, but the gameplay of Phantom Pain, it's unmatched. The amount of versatility that you have to attack your objectives with. You can sneak in on the side of your horse. Like, you can just pretend your horse is a wild horse. You can hang off on the side of it. You can hop off. You can roll in under the cover of night. You can just crawl your way through everything, interrogate someone to find out where your objective is, sneak through, find what you want to grab, and get out without ever being spotted. Or you can go and listen to Flight of the Valkyries on your helicopter with a minigun and a juggernaut suit, massacre everyone, jump in with an LMG and kill any stragglers, grab what you need, and dip. I mean, there are so many different ways to tackle objectives. The gameplay is so versatile, and the amount of tools that you have, the gadgets, the weapons, the suits, the companions that you have, it completely changes the gameplay dynamic every time you edit a part of your loadout. Also allowing for a lot of replayability. And there's a ton of content, so many side missions, collectibles, and again, the main story for what was there is remarkable. And I really wish they let Kojima finish it, but as it stands now, it is, my number 6 top game of the generation, and I really, really hope that one day Kojima will get to work on Metal Gear once again, because even though Konami owns the name and the IP, it's his child, it's his creation, and no one
Yeah,
should touch it but him.
I agree. Okay, so my number 5 is God of War, which we already talked about, so I can't really dive into it. But as we said before, it's a really good game. So, I mean,
If there's any, personal opinions you want to add on that we didn't discuss, by all means.
ooh, let's see. I mean, I didn't play it at launch. I played it. It was like, I want to say either October or November after its release, so a few months late. Because of the collector's edition, there was like a price there at, I think, Amazon. So I was able to get the collector's edition for $50, I want to say.
Really?
Yeah. So I was able to get that with the game. I was planning on asking for the game for Christmas, and I was going to play through it then. But I saw that, I had to snag it. And I mean, it would have been, I think, like $30 for the base game at Christmas. So I was pretty much paying $20 extra for a really nice collector's edition. And, I mean, I really like the game. I like Kratos. I mean, I can't wait for the sequel. As I said before, it's not coming in 2021. There's no way it's coming in 2022. If COVID didn't happen, then yeah, sure, I could see it in 2021. But I have a really strong feeling it's getting pushed out of this window of 2021. It's going to be an early 2022 game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's really it. So what are you looking at, Mike?
For number 5, well,
Yep.
it's something we've already discussed, and it's Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil is my second favorite gaming franchise of all time. It's in my, it's the best survival horror series to ever do it. It was the first, and it was the best, and it will always be the best in my opinion. I've never played a Resident Evil game I've disliked, even 5 and 6. I know a lot of people are gonna get mad about that, but you wanna know what? At the same time, I don't care. I love Resident Evil 5 and 6. They have their own place in the franchise, and without them, we wouldn't have Resident Evil 7. Without the backlash from those games, we wouldn't have had the major reboot that the franchise needed to undergo to survive, and that gave us my favorite of the entire series. I love the first-person perspective. I love it way more than the third-person one. I think it gives you a sense of immersion that you can't find with any other camera view. I mean, you are there. It is you, especially with how blank they leave Ethan as a character. It really helps you put yourself in that situation. And I beat Resident Evil 7 easily 5 times. I beat it on Madhouse. There's so much replayability, so many unlockables, so many achievements to go through in the DLC. Not a Hero as Chris Redfield, and Zoe as Joe Baker. They're a ton of fun. They're very different gameplay style from the original game too. So it's, it's not more of the, it is and it isn't more of the same, but it has its unique spin to it and encourages you to keep playing. The tape DLC as well, so many different mini games and mini stories as well. Daughters was phenomenal. 21 was phenomenal. And again, just the main story, the cast of characters. Again, Ethan was pretty blank, but I think they're gonna expand on that. In Village, Mia was a very intriguing character to move the story along, to keep allowing the player to ask questions about what's really going on here. The Bakers were phenomenal villains, particularly Jack and Lucas. The acting was phenomenal. I would say Marguerite, but she just freaked me out way too much.
Yeah.
She didn't even seem human, which again, compliments to her performance, but the villains were just utterly fantastic. The gameplay was it was an entirely new perspective, but still felt Resident Evil. You had the save room, you had the guns, you had the crafting, you had all of it. I mean, what can I say? It's just the best horror game I have ever played. It's the best Resident Evil game I have ever played. I love the setting of backwoods Louisiana. I love the even when it came out, it looked photorealistic, and it still kind of does to this day. It still holds up with it is.
And then it's VR version too. I mean, I didn't play the VR version, but
neither did I. But
that looked fucking scary.
I intend to at one point in time. It's gonna be terrifying. So I don't know when I plan on doing that, but Resident Evil 7 it was grotesque. It was extremely gory and violent. It was the most violent the series has ever been. But that was a benefit in my mind. I thought that was an improvement. I thought it fit, the game's theme way better. And I love how they still tied it back to Umbrella by the end. You see Chris Redfield show up, and I love the new mold parasite. And
see, I didn't really like the parasite.
I did. If you read all the documents in the game, which I have, there's a lot of lore to it. It makes a lot of sense, and it's really fascinating, especially with Evelyn being the source of it all. And she was not the first experiment with the mold parasite, by the way. But there, and now they think Resident Evil Village, it's gonna be that, Mia's baby is like the target of it all because it was infected with the E-type parasite, and it's gonna have special properties, and that's why she had to die in the trailer. It's just there's so many things that are gonna spin off from 7 now because it took such.
8's gonna be crazy.
And you gotta have 7 to thank for that. I really believe, like God of War, completely turned the series on its head. It innovated, and it was better.
Yeah, because I mean they're on their last legs pretty much. I mean, not that they're on their last legs, but 5 and 6 were, for the most part. I mean, I know you like them, but a lot of people did not like 5 and 6. They still sold pretty well, but the quality. If they had something that was worse than 5 and 6 come out, then I mean, I don't know if Capcom would have continued Resident Evil. I mean, they would have. Probably the RE2 remake was in development, and that would have sold well. But
well, the RE2 remake started as a fan project, which was going on around that same time. But they definitely had other plans in the back burner. And again, 5 and 6 are definitely better as co-op experiences than single-player games. I definitely feel like my opinion of them would be far less warm if I played them on my own. But I didn't. Every single playthrough I did of those games was with a co-op partner, not an AI, and that definitely changed my outlook on those games. But
now, do you think they're going to remake Resident Evil 5? Because we know Resident Evil 4 is getting remade.
I think down the line they will. Yeah, because 5 was Capcom's most highest-selling game up until Monster Hunter World.
Because after 4, I feel like they're definitely going to go back and they're going to do like a remake of 1. I can absolutely see them doing that.
Well, they did a remake of 1 already.
Yeah, but I mean, like, make it like similar to 2. Make it more accessible than new fans. And I could also maybe see them even doing that with the one before 1, the 0.
Well, 0 came out after 1.
Well, yeah, I know, but it's prior to the events.
Yeah, I know.
And then also even like Revelations. I mean, I don't know. I never played those games.
Revelations doesn't need a remake right now.
Okay.
It's still entirely playable. I never beat the second one, but I beat the first one. The first one was very good. It was kind of just a prequel to 5, so it kind of would make sense if they remade 5 to maybe do that at the same time, or to do it first.
Combine them or something, yeah. And I know everyone and their mother wants Code Veronica remade, which.
Well, yeah, I do too. So does my.
Which I haven't played either, so.
Well, Code Veronica is the true Resident Evil 3. That was supposed to be Resident Evil 3, but it was going to take a bit too long to come out, and they still wanted something on the PS1, so Nemesis became 3.
Yeah.
Regardless, back to the topic of discussion, Resident Evil 7, masterpiece of a game, and I can't wait to see how they build off from it with Village. But yeah, that is my number 5.
Okay, my number 4 is Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man was a game that I had no interest in during its like advertisements and stuff when they showed it off at E3. I was like, all right, cool, Spider-Man. But I mean, growing up, I watched the Spider-Man movies. I mean, Tobey Maguire is the best Spider-Man.
Yes.
Andrew Garfield is the 3rd best. I think he's been dethroned by Tom Holland for 2nd place. But besides that, I mean, I thought, all right, it looks cool. But at the time, I didn't really have much interest in it. And then I started watching all the MCU movies because I was never really big into superheroes. I mean, I watched it as a kid, and then I took a big break. And then I started watching the MCU movies back right after like Black Panther came out. And that got me into it. And then I played through all those games, and I was still unsure about Spider-Man. And it was like right before the game came out. I saw the reviews, and the reviews were good, and I pulled the trigger on it. I did a pre-order the day before it came out, and I loved it. I mean, favorite Spider-Man game, but favorite superhero game of all time for me.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Arkham Asylum was good, but I think Spider-Man was better, and I haven't really played any other superhero games besides the other Batman games. So, I mean, I enjoyed the story of that game. I thought they did a really good job with the narrative.
Oh, yeah.
Insomniac showed that they can make a good narrative. Um, Gameplay was really fun. It ran well. I mean, all the side content in the game was fun to play through. Um, yeah, I don't know. I really liked it. I mean, I'm excited for Miles Morales. As I said before, it's probably going to be the first game I'll play on the PS5. I'm not getting the remaster, though. I think that's so stupid that the remastering game that just came out a few years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it should have just been a free upgrade, in my opinion. But
No,
that's
it
besides the point.
absolutely should have been. It should have been. I don't think it's better than the Arkham games, but I definitely see where you're coming from. I mean, to be fair, Spider-Man wouldn't exist without them, but I know you know that.
Yeah.
In terms of combat and all that stuff, it's definitely the Arkham combat, but so many games have taken the combat from Arkham, like Mad Max and the Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War games. Regardless, I do love Spider-Man, and like you said, it's because of the narrative. I mean, as phenomenal as the gameplay is, that narrative really is something special, and I love how Doc Ock was the main villain. Spider-Man 2 is my favorite Spider-Man movie ever made, and that will never change. At least I don't think it will. I will never forget, and it was because of the Peter Parker Doc Ock dynamic, and they nailed that in this game. They made them friends. They made Doc Ock likable.
Yeah, I mean, that was a shock to me because I completely forgot about the movie. Because I watched it when I was so young, and then...
No, they made him a very big part of the story, and they made him your ally, and even at the end, you're questioning, is he my enemy? You know, when you're on top of Oscorp.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get too deep into it, but... Because I don't want to spoil it if no one here has beaten it, but it's phenomenal, especially from Insomniac, from going from Ratchet and Clank to this.
Yeah. I mean, that was like one of my concerns. Like, could they handle doing such a big property like this? And they did. I mean, they did a great job.
It was a massive step forward for them.
Yeah.
And because of that game, I am very excited for Miles Morales. I believe they have a lot of potential as a studio, and I think they can really do whatever they want as long as they keep up with this quality.
Well, based off the reviews, the quality is right there.
Yeah, I'm hoping so, but I'll have to try it out for myself to see.
Yeah.
Regardless, my number 4 is Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3, by far the best Dark Souls game ever made. Now, I know people might get mad at me for that. I don't care. Listen, I've been playing these games for a very long time, and I've played them for a very long time. Each and every single one I have at least over 100 hours in, across multiple platforms. Dark Souls 3 in particular, I have about 400 hours in.
Damn.
It does everything better than any other, Souls game, and I don't mean Bloodborne or Sekiro because they're different. When I say Souls and not Soulsborne, I mean Dark Souls in specific, not even Demon Souls. So, in terms of those 3 games, 3 does it the best. It's faster paced than 1 and 2, definitely in part because it came out after Bloodborne, so it took some inspiration from there. It sped things a little bit up, but not so fast to where it was unrecognizable. The bosses, even though Dark Souls 3 doesn't have my favorite boss of the series, that's still in Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 3 has the best bosses overall of the series, especially when you get to the DLCs. It has the best expansions. I mean, Ashes of Ariendo, you have Sister Freed, which is one of the best final bosses for a DLC ever, and then everything in Ring City is phenomenal, from Dark Eater, Midir, to Slave Knight Gale. I mean, fighting Half-Lay, or if you get him, he sucks as a boss, but that is meant to be a PvP boss where someone's supposed to be summoned in, and that's a cool idea because that's bringing back the old monk concept from Demon Souls, which we will see once again on Thursday, which I'm very happy about. But not even talking about the DLC, the combat, it's faster paced, like I said. Just overall, the game's faster paced due to coming out after Bloodborne, and it benefits from that greatly. That was my first Dark Souls game, so it allowed a lot of new people to get in because it was more accessible, at least at first. It's not easier. I still believe Dark Souls 2 to be the easiest in the series, but it definitely allows more people to get into it because how it moves faster. And then after that, I went back and played the others because it allowed me to get comfortable with the series and the gameplay mechanics as a whole. Now, a lot of people say Dark Souls 3 has no weapons, and that's kind of true. The weapons on selection are definitely not as good as it was in, say, Dark Souls 1, for example. But if that's one of the main cons I get with just a brilliant PvP, a brilliant new every boss pretty much being an absolute banger. Um, Updated co-op that works pretty much flawlessly, endless replayability. I've easily beaten Dark Souls 3 over 25 times, and I mean, there's so much I love about this game. I'm trying to find where like a subject I want to stick to when it comes to discussing Dark Souls 3, but it's all so good. It's all so phenomenal, and just it did PvP the best. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me. I don't care. It did PvP the best. It did boss design the best. It did gameplay the best. There was very, like, some Dark Souls has some bullshit in it. I will say the hitboxes in DS2 are absurd, and there's a lot of broken mechanics in the first one, but the third one is the most fair, and that's why it's also the most challenging, because when you die, you know it's due to the boss or the enemy or yourself, your own personal error, and not some BS in the game. And I just have to applaud Hidetaka Miyazaki and the entire studio over at From Software for giving us the finale to the trilogy that we wanted and that we deserved, and they surpassed all my expectations and then some. I really don't have much else to say. I've 100%ed this game. I've played it as every class. I've I've done everything there is to do. I've collected every pyromancer, every sorcery, every spell, every ring, every armor set, every weapon. I've played this game in any manner that you can, and it's incredible, and that's why it's my number 4. And if that's my number 4, my top 3 are really some special stuff, because Dark Souls 3 is one of the most important games in my life. Like I discussed earlier, it helped me out of a really rough spot, and again, I know I've been kind of jumping all over the place with this point, but it's really because I love this game so much that I can't really stick to what
I mean, I could tell.
It's just all incredible, and I know I've just been rambling this whole time, but thank you for allowing me to do that, because whenever I talk about Dark Souls 3, it's just gushing. That's all it is, just gushing.
Well, I mean, there would be nothing I could add to that because I've never played Dark Souls 3.
Do it.
Dude, I mean, Demon Souls is gonna be my first shot. We'll see how Demon Souls goes for a Soulsborne game. That's gonna be my first one. I'm really trying at. I mean, I've messed around with the first boss fight on Dark Souls 1, and that didn't end well. But we'll see. I mean, it just felt outdated to me, Dark Souls 1. So, we'll see how Demon Souls goes. If it goes good, I want to play Bloodborne. But, let's move into my number 3 game, which I wasn't sure about this one because it's technically a PS3 game, but it's a remaster, and I played it on the PS4 for the first time. That's where it's The Last of Us Remastered. Now, it was the reason, I don't want to say it's the reason I got my PS4. I got my PS4, when did I get my PS4? I don't remember when I got my PS4, but I got my PS4 right around the time Uncharted 4 was coming out. And because I wanted to try out some of these exclusives that everyone talks about that are so good over at PlayStation, and that's the reason I got my PS4, was Uncharted 4 coming out and The Last of Us Remastered. Those 2 games combined, and that's what I got with my PS4 on my day 1 when I had it. And I really like both games, but The Last of Us Remastered stuck out above Uncharted 4 for me personally. And maybe my decision on that would have changed if I played the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection prior to Uncharted 4, and I got to know Nathan Drake's full character. And I mean, part of the reason why I didn't like The Last of Us Part 2 is because The Last of Us Remastered. I mean, with how good The Last of Us Remastered is, you care about these characters so much, and then you go in The Last of Us Part 2, and it's like, oh, there you go. Like, and that's why a lot of people like The Last of Us Part 2, is because they never got to know Joel. They never got to know the relationship they had between Ellie. So they just saw him, oh, alright, this is just Ellie's random dad figure who dies in the first 2 hours. Who the hell cares about him? And I understand why a lot of people met Abby and Ellie at the same time. So when you're factoring, then you find out, oh, alright, this person killed her dad. Well, then that makes sense why she wanted to kill Joel. And you don't care that Joel died because you didn't really know him as a character. I mean, people who played The Last of Us Part 2 knew Joel pretty much as long as they knew Abby's dad. And, I mean, for me, when I played The Last of Us Remastered, I mean, those characters, the development, it didn't even hit me on my first playthrough on that game. I mean, after my first playthrough, I probably liked Uncharted 4 more. And then on my second playthrough, which I did right before The Last of Us Part 2 came out, I really saw how good this game was. I enjoyed a lot more about it. The combat was more enjoyable for me on that second playthrough. And I just thought it was a really good game. And obviously, I mean, the story is what carries the game. The narrative, the characters you learn about, you meet. I don't know. It's a good game.
No, the relationship between Joel and Ellie is unmatched. At least, and this is completely just talking about the first game. Let's not even talk about the second one.
Yeah.
Let's pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
For
No
all of our
second part.
sanities. So that dynamic between them is what made the game as good as it was, which is what Neil Druckmann failed to understand in the second game. Again, if you never played The Last of Us 1, yeah, I'm sure you like Last of Us 2, but here's the thing, the game wasn't made for you. It was a sequel. The number 2 is there for a reason. It's a follow-up to the first one, and the first one outclasses it in every single possible
I mean, dude, just the first 30 minutes of The Last of Us Part 1. I mean, dude, just...
In Texas with Sarah?
Yeah,
I
mean...
Brutal.
And I wrote a whole article on that on thegamepreview.com. And... I mean, dude, I don't know. It really set the whole scene for the game. It showed, like... Because I saw that scene on YouTube. I saw it so many times that I knew I had to play this game. And it's just a masterpiece the whole way through.
And the audience immediately built a connection with Joel in that moment because of how traumatic that event was. You barely knew this guy. You've known for about 20, 25 minutes. And then this absolute devastating tragedy happens, which no matter if you don't know this guy, you know how...
Yeah, you're watching his daughter die in his arms, I mean.
And just how they're able to establish that connection between the player and this main protagonist without even knowing him for even a half hour. Incredible. Which just goes to show I don't know how they fell so far from 1 to 2. That's an entirely different topic for another day because The Last of Us 2 is on neither of our lists. Best believe. My number 3, I believe, is on that same level of The Last of Us 1 is another magnum opus. We had Kojima's on here, or at least on my list, and we have Dan Houser's and Rockstar's magnum opus. It's my number 3, Red Dead Redemption 2. I will say this in terms of gaming protagonists, and I don't count Geralt of Rivia because he's not a gaming protagonist. He came from a book series first, so I don't count him. Arthur Morgan is my favorite gaming protagonist by far. If you play him as high honor, which I did 100% playthrough. I did everything, the highest honor.
Yeah, same.
And just, my God, Roger Clark, you are the man. You will never see this probably. You will never watch this, but let me tell you something, dude. You deserve about 5 Oscars for that one performance alone because you made me cry when you died.
Alright, gonna put a spoiler warning right there.
Everybody's played RDR2, Frank. Everybody knows, alright? It's devastating, it's heartbreaking, but that's...
Dude, there was like a part of me that really wanted him to survive. Like, I thought, oh, maybe there's a chance he gets away from this life, and he lives on, and that's why he's not in Red Dead 1.
When you get diagnosed with TB, that's a death sentence.
Yeah, it was just so sad just watching it slowly get worse, and you just know this is how it's gonna
Micah
go.
with the jabs constantly, like, hey, Black Lung, like, you son of a gun. But let me get
Micah should have stayed in that jail cell. We should have never saved him.
let me get into why I love RDR2 so much. First of all, the level of detail is insane. If you want a game with content, it's RDR2. Like I said, I've done the hunting requests, I've done the exotics, I've done I've done pretty much all the challenges. I've 100%ed this game, so I've done everything there is to do, and I easily have 250 hours in this.
Did you play online?
I did not. I am not counting online in this discussion at all because, in my opinion, it's terrible. But it completely just
because I mean I want to try out the online just to see what the quest. I mean I started it and the servers were terrible at launch, and I am doing a second playthrough of Red Dead. I'm gonna play it on PC when I get my 3080. Probably sometime over the summer when I have free time. Because that's just a game that it's so good.
I played the online at launch and it's very bare bones. I don't.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
But I'm really not interested in it because of how phenomenal the story is. Like I said, there's so much content you can. It's the Old West. Anything you can picture yourself doing in the Old West, you can do in this game. The side missions, or the stranger missions, I've done all the stranger mission strands. They're incredible.
Same.
They're so much fun. They are just as quality as the main story. Some really, I mean, I will say I was disappointed by having no strange man. I mean, he pops up in one place, but there's no like side mission chain like there was in the first game. regardless, all the stranger missions that are in the game are very interesting, and I felt compelled enough to play through them all. But despite gameplay and side content and just what you can do in the game, which again is pretty much anything in its
I mean,
own
dude,
West
even the
Benedict,
open world. Like, you
it,
remember that
it's
one
so
house where
beautiful.
you can go in and you can get drugged?
Yeah, there's
Like,
so many
like
random
that
things
wasn't
that
even
can
like a
happen.
side mission. That was just a
No,
random encounter that you can go in this person's house, eat with them, and then you can get drugged. You can go tie them up and go bring them back to the hole that they threw you in, and they'll have like certain
have
dialogue
you
by
ever?
doing that.
I tracked down a serial killer, which was a random world event. You have to find corpses all around the world, and they have to track this guy down. I also found night people, a race that are not human, that live out in the bayou of Lemoyne. And I found a corpse hanging just while I was picking flowers for a challenge. I found a corpse hanging, and and there was an alligator in front of me, and I was about to shoot this gator, and I got jumped by these night creatures, like these night folk. They grabbed me from behind, and these were not human. They had blacked out eyes. Their skin was like almost scales, and they jumped me, and this gator bit my leg, and then they stabbed me in the throat and killed me, and I was just screwed. But that just happened
Yeah.
in the world. And there was one stranger mission, which is very rare to come across. It's practically a random world event where you find this one guy just out in the bayou, and he's like, "Oh, the night folk have taken over my house." So you're just walking through this swamp for like 15 minutes in the dark with this guy just talking about the lore of these people. You think you're gonna get jumped the entire time, but you don't. By the time you get to this guy's cabin, it's empty. And then as you're just discussing what's the hell's going on with them, you hear just yells in the forest, and there's like 30 night folk that just charge this cabin. It's like the RE4 cabin defense, and it's insane. But this stuff just happens in the open world. But regardless, the main point I wanted to talk about with RDR2 is the narrative. It is the best story Rockstar and Dan Houser has ever penned. I
Definitely.
mean, it is so suspenseful. I did not play anything else when that game came out. I just wanted to beat it all the way through so I had no spoilers and so I could just know how the narrative goes. And I loved it. I loved how we got to see so many characters from the first one, from Javier Escuela to Bill Williamson to Dutch Vanderlyn to John Marston, Abigail Marston, and Jack Marston. You know, we got to see all these people when they were younger, but the new characters too, like Lenny Summers, Arthur Morgan, Kieran Duffy, Micah Bell, Molly O'Shea, Agent Milton, and we got to again another returning character, Agent Ross. You know, we get
Yeah.
to see so many familiar and new faces, but they mesh so well together, like they've always been in the same world, even though they're completely new. The game opens phenomenally. You're coming back from a heist, and you have no idea as the player what happened, but your main protagonist Arthur doesn't know what happened, so you immediately feel that connection. Like, we're all confused here, we're just out to survive, and you just stick with him on this journey trying to figure out what happened and just escape the law and find a new peaceful life out west. But it never really ends that way,
Yeah.
as you know. Regardless,
And I mean, I just want to say, I like how you see like a civil war starting in your own group, and you start picking sides. And I mean, I thought like Javier was gonna side with us, but obviously I knew, since you're tracking him down in Red Dead 1, that obviously that doesn't happen. But there was that part of me that hoped, oh, maybe he will.
the
And
dynamic between the characters is phenomenal. Just the way you can interact with them all. Again, if you just hold down left trigger, you can talk to them.
yeah,
You can be an asshole, or you can be the nicest guy on the planet. Um, there's just so much world building and character building constantly, but it never feels overwhelming. It's just appreciated because this world is so beautiful, it's so well designed, you want to know as much about it as you can. At least in my personal opinion, that's what I did. And by the time the story ended, I was devastated because I loved Arthur. I loved the horse, damn it. And the
yeah, the
horse didn't
horse.
make it out too. Um, but it was, and I don't want to give too, like, I already given a lot away, but I
Yeah,
don't want to give away every single little detail of the plot because there's just so much fantastic, there's so many fantastic set pieces and moments, especially the bank heist in Saint
yeah,
Denis was, it was crazy. It was just non-stop encouraging the player to go forward, encouraging the player to pay attention to the world and to the characters around them, because there's so many hidden details. Like, if you really pay attention, spoiler alert, you can tell that Micah's the rat before Gorma. Like, when Milton says they picked him up after Gorma, that's a lie, because Micah was the rat before Blackwater. That's why it was a setup. And if you really pay attention throughout the whole story, you can easily put that together. And it's just, there's so much going on, but it's all so good. It's all so phenomenally written, and just, there's so much to do in this game. and it is the best Wild West game ever made. I believe it's Rockstar's best game that they've ever created, and I think they'll never top it, personally. And I know I kind of just gushed about this one too, but I mean, we're getting to that point in the list where these are just absolute
Really good
masterclass
games.
games. Yeah, I just,
I
for
mean,
me,
and I'm just hoping for Red Dead Redemption to get remastered. I mean, same engine
I
as Red Dead 2. Come on, let's
it'd
just
be
get it done.
it would be insane. Like a remake at that point is what it
Yeah.
would be. And I'm all for it. Just keep the voice actors of the original, keep the basic mechanics, but
And they could even
make their
extend the
art
story
now.
with Jack. I mean, you could extend the epilogue. Because Red Dead 2, I do that epilogue of that game, you'd think the game's done. And then you have a
It's
whole
10
epilogue that's
hours.
like 2 hours. Then you have a second epilogue that's like another 2 hours. It's like.
The epilogue's really long, and I honestly appreciate that for what
And
it
then when
is.
you're playing as. Well, we've already spoiled so much, so if you're watching
Yeah,
this, you've played the game. When you're playing as John, you go and interact with people who Arthur interacted with, and you could tell him, like, oh yeah, he died, unfortunately. And it's just. The level of detail, like you said, is amazing in this game. It's really.
I will have to. One last thing I want to say, because a lot of games like The Last of Us 2 we just mentioned mess this up a lot. The ending of RDR2 was incredible. It was
Yeah.
perfect, and it was everything that it needed to be. You got your revenge. It was the best way possible because Dutch even acknowledged that he was screwed over. Finally, he takes his revenge too. Micah gets just absolutely lit up by everybody on that mountaintop. Stady and Charles survived their wounds, which, questionable, but hey, I'm happy because I love those characters. And justice was served, and it sets up perfectly for the first game. You see Agent Ross scouting out the ranch that John built with his family at
Yeah.
Beecher's Hope, and it's just, you can tell it all flows so well. And to do a prequel this well, to have it outclass the original in almost
Yep.
every single way, it's just bravo Rockstar, bravo Dan Houser, and I really hope that you guys continue to make games on this quality, because I'll tell you something, you're never making anything better than this.
Well, my number 2 was Red Dead Redemption 2. So I think you said everything perfectly. It's one of the best games of all time. They probably will not top it. Um, I don't know. I mean, you can't get much better than that. I mean, I don't see
And
another cowboy game coming out for a while, unless it is a remaster for Red Dead 1.
yeah,
Um,
where they reboot Gun without him ever.
yeah, but so yeah. On that note, Mike, what is your number 2?
My number two. Now, I will have to say, and so this will probably give away what my number one is for you, but I'm not gonna say it. I have two favorite games of all time, and they
Okay.
both came out this generation. So I had to pick objectively for this list what would be number one and what would be number two out of these two. But for me personally, these two I view exactly the same. I love them just as much, and they are my favorite games ever made. So number two has to be Bloodborne.
Okay.
Bloodborne is the best Soulsborne game ever made, period. I understand people like the precision, just insanely precise precision that is required to play Sekiro and to beat that game. Just the timing that you need for the parries and the blocks, and just the exact moments where you need to execute those moves and then counter attack and all. I understand people love the finesse of that, and I understand Sekiro is their favorite for those reasons. I understand people love Dark Souls because it's a bit slower paced. It's, a lot of it is timing and waiting and patience, and I understand why a lot of people love those games because they get rewarded for that if you play the games in that way. Bloodborne fits my play style for, melee action games perfectly. It encourages aggression. It encourages aggression to the point of trading damage with the bosses, because if you this key mechanic of reprisals, if you get hit, a large portion, the majority portion of the damage you just took, you can get the health back for by executing attacks on enemies. So when you get hit, you'll see where you lost health up into, but there will be an orange bar that is fading. Um, so if you attack sooner rather than later after sustaining a hit, you can get more of your health back with every hit that you land on the enemy. And for that reason, it just encourages aggressive play. And that's pretty much the main reason why it's my favorite in terms of gameplay. But in terms of story and lore, I am a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan. I love it. And combining gothic horror with the Lovecraftian mythos and just mashing it all together to have some type of werewolf alien hybrid Souls like game is I don't even know where to, I don't know where to begin. The art style is beautiful. I mean, it looks a lot like Victorian England, but you can tell it is not normal. It is that Yarnum is not a good place to be if you want to maintain your life and your sanity. Um, but it's the best location for a game I've ever played, and I love Yarnum. I've never played in a more beautiful game world besides maybe Death Stranding's United States, but it's beautiful in a different way. That map, in terms of artistic impression and just like I said, the art style, nothing beats Yarnum. But in terms of boss design, oh my god, every single boss in Bloodborne, there are a few joke ones like Celestial Emissary and Living Failures, but overall, they are just so quality, and it's so much harder than Dark Souls. But for me, it's easier because it just, like I said, it fits my aggressive playstyle. I like trading damage. I like being right up in the bosses or enemies' face and having to dodge at the last possible second, but I can get the most damage in that way. That's the way I play, and Bloodborne rewards that consistently throughout the entire game. And the DLC, the Old Hunters, my god, it's the best expansion for a game I've ever played besides The Witcher 3's Blood and Wine. And because of that, again, is the boss quality. It's way harder than the base game, and it just ramps up. But the combat in Bloodborne, like I've said, it's fast, it's vigorous, it's bloody, it's just way more high octane than the Souls games are. It's definitely requires less precision than Sekiro, but it requires way more aggression than Sekiro. It, it it's different. That's why I don't like when people say, "Oh, Sekiro, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, it's all the same." It's not. From an outside perspective, I can get why it might look that way, but they play incredibly differently at their core mechanics. And Bloodborne's, unique variation of the Souls gameplay twist fits me the best, and that's the main reason, like I've said, that I love this game. But the story, again, these games don't tell stories in the most conventional ways, but
Yeah.
the lore behind the bosses, the Blood Moon, the old ones, the great ones, just the celestial beings. Just there's so much lore that that to get into that I don't even know where to begin to unpack it. So I won't, because we'll be here for hours. But I encourage you to watch Vadi Vidya's videos on the Bloodborne lore, because the man is just a scholar when it comes to Soulsborne lore, and he has it all outlined there. But if you don't want to watch those videos, you can surmise, most of the story for yourself just by playing the game. Again, pay attention to the boss arenas and what the bosses say and how they act, and even the weapons they fight with that give you clues as to the world and their background. Read item descriptions, look around the world, pay attention to what's placed where. You will definitely, figure out what happened to Yarnum, how this place came to be, how the nightmare came to be on your own if you pay attention to the game world around you. And I love how the game rewards you for that. It's you can find it if you're interested in it, but if not, it doesn't take away from the game at all, because the gameplay is still phenomenal. And there's less weapons than in any Souls game in Bloodborne, but that's because each weapon has two formations that you can change on the fly, and that adds a lot of versatility to combat as well. And I love Bloodborne.
Okay. I
I
mean,
love Bloodborne
I'm
more
gonna
than
play it
Mafia.
eventually, assuming it gets a 60 FPS patch or a remaster or whatever they do, because it's
And
probably the one PS4 exclusive that was like top tier that I didn't play.
I will
And
say this as well, because I can't believe I forgot it, but the soundtrack, my god. And I should have said that for Dark Souls 3 as well. Dark Souls 3 is the best soundtrack of the Souls series, but man, Bloodborne has the best soundtrack of the Soulsborne series as a whole. And every single just orchestral track is I I don't even know what to say. It's so beautiful. I have these soundtracks installed on my phone. It's the only game soundtracks I have. It's just the Souls. I don't know what to say. They're just the best games ever made, and Bloodborne is the best of the best. Again, my opinion. I know a lot of people dispute it. but I love Bloodborne. It's number 2 for me.
Okay. Now, I know what your number one is. It's my number one. We are mutually agreed on it. But I just want to note something before we get into it. I'm very shocked that Resident Evil 2 Remake wasn't in your top 10.
Well, I wanted to do both of them, to
Yeah.
be honest. But then I thought about all the other games I played. I'm like, okay, I should probably only do one was Resident Evil, and Resident Evil 2 is the remake that is honestly my 4th favorite Resident Evil. So there would be a few other games before I could mention that, but 7 was my most favorite. So
What's before? I know 4 is above. I know you said you like 4.
yeah, well, 7's my favorite, 4 is my 2nd favorite, and I do like the 3 remake more than the 2 remake.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Don't feel that
I know
way.
you played it a lot. You played it like 13 times.
Yes.
We both got the game at the same time. On my first playthrough. I just keep seeing on your Snapchat story, it's like a new time. You're like, oh, beat it. I'm still on my first playthrough. Yeah, I beat it 6 times. I'm like, okay.
It's a fun game, man.
It is a fun game. It's short but sweet, and
I think it has more replayability than the second one in my
I
opinion.
agree. I definitely agree on that note.
And it cut as much content as the 2 remake did, but it gets way more crap for it, and I don't understand. They have the same amount of cut content, especially
What did they cut from 2?
from 2. Well,
Yeah.
they cut the sewer gator fight.
Okay.
That I know for sure. I would have to get back to you on the rest of it. I know for 3 they cut out the worm fight in Fox Park, which if anyone
Yeah,
wants
I
to
remember
go
seeing a
back,
lot of people
fire.
complaining about 3. But like the clock tower is missing and a few other things.
The clock tower is the one that bothers me. I wish the clock tower was in the game. I completely agree with everyone on that. But the Fox Park argument, no, shush. I'm sorry. You want to fight a giant worm in 2020 with those clunky mechanics? I don't think so. I don't want to fight a giant worm, and neither do you people.
Okay, so number 1 is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. I mean,
Yes.
as I said before, I was shocked at how this game called The Witcher could be getting Game of the Year nominations over Fallout 4, you know? And then I played it, and, I hated it. I'll be honest with you, I saw it was good. At first, I played it on Xbox. I played the intro at White Orchard, and I stopped playing it. And then I was like, alright, I gotta give this game another shot. So I got it on PC, and I restarted it, got through White Orchard, and then I started getting into these main storylines and even sidelines. And like the Bloody Baron had a great quest line. And then there's just quality after quality after quality after quality. And there's so much quality in this game. Like, some games will be really long, and then they'll get like repetitive, and they won't have like good of a narrative. But The Witcher 3 was really long, but it was also really good. I mean, the quality was good. I know some people had complaints about the combat. I didn't have any issues with the combat. I don't know if you did, but
The combat could have stand to be improved upon a little, but it wasn't as bad as some people made it. I remember there's this one reviewer, and he has a pretty relatively sound opinion on most things, but he did not recommend The Witcher 3. He thought it was terrible. His name is, well, I'm not going to mention his name here, but he thought it was a terrible game. I was just like, what the hell are you talking about? This is the best game I've ever played in my life.
put that name in the Discord because I'm actually curious.
It's just, listen, every single component of The Witcher 3 works flawlessly with the others, and I don't have anything bad to say about it. That is one game that I have nothing bad to say about it. I've beaten it over 3 times. I have hundreds of hours of gameplay in it.
I mean, dude, the graphics of that game,
it
still holds up today. And I can't wait to see this 2021 remaster that's coming out. Because that's when I'm going to do my second playthrough of this game. And it's also always on sale. Like, GTA, it goes on sale quite a bit now. But for like that year 2, year 3, year 4 of GTA, they didn't really want to go on sale. I mean, they kept it at a very high price. Witcher 3, they put it on discount with all the DLC pretty quick. And for $20. And those DLCs, I mean, Blood and Wine could have been its own game. Blood and Wine could have been its own game. Best DLC I've ever played.
Tied with Old Hunters for Bloodborne for me, but yeah, I mean, I just started playing Blood and Wine again on my 1X and about 2 months ago, and I can't say enough good things about it. The story is consistently fantastic all the way through, and I've read some of the books and I've watched the show, and you know, I will say the show is the weakest out of the 3, and the games are on par with the books. I mean,
Yeah.
especially Witcher 3. There's so many different endings. Just the amount of choice in that game, whether it's a main quest or a side quest, is insane compared to any other game that I've ever played. And the fact that every single one of your decisions matters, and
Yeah.
it truly matters, and it will
Actually
come
affects
back
your
to bite
ending.
you in the ass.
Like, oh, I got the bad ending.
My first playthrough I did, and then my second and third playthroughs I get the Ciri Witcher ending because, in my opinion, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
But regardless, there's so many different ways it can go. Especially when you're talking to someone, you could say something to them, and you have no idea at the time, but that will determine that character's entire fate. You got to really be careful. You can't. This is not a game where you can skip through dialogue. You have to pay attention, and if you don't have the patience for that, well, then don't play the game, because it's made for people
Yeah,
who
like,
want to hear the story.
For example, the Yennefer, I didn't do one of her missions before another mission, so it ended up like screwing it up because I did it was like for her romance. You had to do this one mission, and I was just holding off on it. I was like, oh, I'll do it later, and then I guess I went past the point of no return, and that mission got like canceled or whatever, and I ended up not being able to romance Yennefer. Just because that one thing. And it was like I went back and fixed it, but
well, certain characters might die if you don't do their quest before another one. If you don't talk to them, and if you're not even nice to them, they might not be encouraged enough in the battle the next day, and they might die if you don't recruit another character. I'll say this: there was one point where you have to recruit a certain character, certain sorcerers, to come back to Kaer Morhen for the final battle, and if you don't bring them back, a Witcher will die. That doesn't have to.
Wait, hold up.
What?
So, in your playthrough, we're going to spoiler territory here. We've already spoiled so much. I'll write it down on the list to put a spoiler warning for Witcher 3. Okay. So you're telling me that I forget what his name was. The one I know the
Lambert.
So you're telling me he could have lived?
Yes, if you bring back Kira Metz.
I think I tried to get her back and she didn't want to come.
Yeah, it's again her dialogue. She can either go off on her own, she can go off to Kaer Morhen, or you can fight her and kill her.
I didn't kill her, so I think she went off on her own during my playthrough. I mean, it's been a while. It's been like 5 years.
Yeah, but no, he doesn't have to die.
Damn.
Again, just there's so many different things that you can do.
And like, did you have the player from Witcher 2 come back? I forget his name.
Letho?
Yeah.
No, I killed him in Witcher 2.
Oh, really? I didn't play Witcher 2 until after Witcher 3, so I missed out on that.
If I replay Witcher 2, I'm going to spare him.
Yeah, I want to do a second playthrough Witcher 2 to do the... I forgot their fucking names. I started with Dude, what's his name? The guy, blue, his stripes, the stripe guy.
Yeah, Vernon Roach.
Yeah, Roach. I wasn't sure if it was Roach, because I'm thinking Roach, I'm thinking of the horse. I'm like... Yeah, I sided with him and his party in Witcher 2, so I missed out on the other storyline, which I know the quest.
He's the best guy to side with.
Yeah, I mean, he's the homie.
Yeah, no, I allied with him in Witcher 3 and brought him back to Kaer Morhen as well. But the fact that there's so many different things you can do. You can assassinate the King of Redania.
Yeah.
Radovid. That's crazy.
That was cool.
Because Radovid's a bastard in the books, man. His father, Vizimir, was a completely different man than him, and just Radovid is literally insane. He's a sociopath, and whoever portrays him in the game does such a phenomenal job, and it really makes you want to kill him. And I didn't do it my first playthrough because I didn't figure out how to get the conspiracy to move forward, but I did. And my second playthrough, and it was just that was all a side mission, but it was a grand conspiracy.
That's what I'm saying. All the side missions in this game were the quality of main missions.
It was. I mean, you see a game like, Assassin's Creed Origins, who says they take inspiration from The Witcher 3, and you can definitely see in the way the mechanics are set up where it takes inspiration, but it doesn't have the heart of Witcher 3. And that was a thing that they definitely failed to see, is that the people making The Witcher 3 had passion for the lore, for the source material. They wanted to do it justice, and they did. And look how successful Witcher 3. I mean, 6 years ago, people never really heard of Witcher compared to something like Lord of the Rings. Now it's a household name because of Witcher 3 being the catalyst to launch this IP into the mainstream. And no one can deny that. Yes, the TV show is based off of the books, but there would be no TV show without The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt.
Yeah, I mean, the guy who wrote the books made a lot of money because of the game. I mean, just from the amount of people going to read the books because they found it through the game and the TV show now.
Yeah, That's what happened to me. I read the books after playing the game. You know,
Yeah.
I read Blood of Elves. I thought it was fantastic. I'm about to start the second book soon. I think it's Time of something. I don't remember the
Stones, maybe.
it is an S word. I think it might be. Oh no, it's a C word. Time of Contempt. That's what it's called. And
Yeah.
I'm excited to start that. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't have been interested in it without the game. But that's because of how phenomenal the game is. You know, every side quest, like we've been saying, is just as, quality as the
Dude, even
main
the
story.
contracts in The Witcher. I mean,
I did every single contract.
I
And
did
it
too.
was
I
so
mean,
much
they're all
fun.
great.
The fact that you can even barter for how much you're gonna get paid.
Yeah.
That adds more immersion into it as well. There's just so much to do in The Witcher 3. There's racing too. There's a knight's tourney you can compete in Toussaint.
Yeah.
Like, Hearts of Stone is an incredible story. Um, the first expansion with Olgierd von Everick, his storyline is insane. And
Yeah.
Master Mir, literally the incarnation of evil itself, getting brought into play. There's so many different things. The first vampire is in Blood and Wine, the Elder, and then Detloff has such a good storyline as well. Um, the connection between Geralt, Triss, Ciri, all of it is just so powerful. You really feel for these characters. You want them to have happy endings. Um, the amount of endings that this game has as well. I mean, there's 3 main ones with 12 different variations, so
Yeah.
for like a total of 36 or something like that. What other game has that?
Nothing
What
I
other
know of.
Exactly. There is nothing on par with The Witcher 3. It's beautiful graphically, its story is phenomenal, its gameplay is so much fun, and it's consistent all the way through from start of game to end of game and through both expansions. Not to mention there were 16 free pieces of DLC for this game they
Yes.
could have easily monetized. Um I started my 4th playthrough already on Switch as well, and I can't wait to start my 5th when the next gen re-release comes out. And I do need to finish the DLCs on my 1X playthrough as well, because I only did the DLCs on PC. Regardless, I played this game so many times because of how phenomenal it is. And I guess what I have to say at the end of all of this is that there is no game better than The Witcher 3
I agree.
of all time, not even
All
just
the
this
time, I agree.
generation.
I 100% agree on that.
It's just Geralt of Rivia is the man.
I agree. I mean, nothing can top it. I don't think anything will top it for a very, very long time. Maybe The Witcher 4, but since it won't be Geralt, or I mean, it could be a younger
Geralt will
Geralt.
show up, but it will probably be Ciri, which I'm totally okay with.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of would like a younger Geralt, or even a Witcher 1 like remake did.
I would love that.
Because I didn't play Witcher 1. I played Witcher 2 and Witcher 3.
I didn't play Witcher 1 either.
Because I heard Witcher 1 was very, dated.
It's very dated.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's just very dated. Unfortunately, I mean, what are you gonna do?
The old game, I mean.
2007.
Yeah.
It had nowhere near the budget of the second or even the third one.
Yeah.
A younger Geralt would be cool to see, because there's a lot of stories about Geralt in his youth. That's already there. But I do feel like they would want to move past Witcher 3 in the timeline, and it would make sense to have, Ciri be the main protagonist, which, once again, I am totally okay with.
Same.
Ciri's a badass. That's how you write a female character. Cough, cough, Naughty Dog, cough, cough.
Yeah, I mean, even like in that little segment of time where you play as Ciri in the game, I mean, the combat feels just as good. I mean,
yeah, I mean, you have the Elder Blood in you that gives you these insane powers that replaces your signs, and you don't need your signs. You just teleport all over the place and slice through everything like your wind. Again, there's so much that's been said about The Witcher 3, because there's so much to say about The Witcher 3 because of how impactful it was on the industry as a whole. I mean, look at all the games that are delaying themselves because of Cyberpunk still.
Yeah, I mean, they're all afraid.
How impactful Cyberpunk will be because of how good The Witcher 3 was. There's a direct correlation there that's undeniable.
Yeah.
There's just, in my opinion, like, I get where some people have gripes with the combat, because there definitely are some issues and some BS sometimes, just in the way that it's designed. But overall, if that's the only gripe that people have, it's the only gripe that I have. To me, that's a perfect game, because as close as you're gonna get. There will never be a flawless game, but to me, Witcher 3 is perfect, and I cannot wait for the re-release next year, for the updated visuals, for all the included DLC content, and honestly just to buy the game again, because CDPR is the only dev out there that I am, besides from
Well, it's gonna be free.
Well, I'm gonna get it physically, so
Ah,
I'm gonna
okay.
pay for it. But I'm happy to give my money to them because they
Yeah.
have given me an experience I wouldn't trade anything for.
I mean, yeah, that's why I bought the collector's edition for Cyberpunk. I was like,
Yeah,
even if this game is terrible and I hate it, they deserve my money because The Witcher 3 was not worth the $60. That was like $120 game.
I bought the collector's edition for Witcher 3 after the fact because of how much I love the game.
Yeah.
And I pre-ordered this collector's edition for Cyberpunk as well because I have so much faith, because Cyberpunk is the only game that can top The Witcher 3 theoretically. And we'll see on December 10th. If it comes out December 10th, a month and a day away from today, we shall see. But it is the only game that has that potential, and if it doesn't, live up to that expectation, that's okay too, because we still will always have The Witcher 3.
Yeah. Okay, well, that is the end of our list. Unless you have anything else to add?
I do not. That's pretty
Okay,
much all I wanted to say. I know I just gushed for like my last 4, but
yeah.
Again, I don't care because I love those games with all my heart. They're all 10s, in my opinion. So.
Well, that will be it for this episode. Next week should be a pretty long one.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I would assume.
So I get to gush again.
Yeah. So we will see you in the next one, guys. Have a good one.
Be sure to keep it to thegamepreview.com for all of our articles that will be coming out over the coming days, because we definitely will have coverage on the PS5 launch and the Xbox Series X launch and the games that go along with it. Be sure to check out Frank's review of Watch Dogs Legion that also just dropped last night if you're interested in that. But that's pretty much all I have to say for myself.
Okay.
So Frank, if you could take us out.
Well, thank you guys for watching, and have a good one.